Hello, I'm Liselle Sambury, and welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things traditional publishing, writing, and a little bit of reading. And today's video is all about book marketing and how I market my books, and specifically how I'm planning to market my 2024 young adult psychological thriller / horror, Tender Beasts. So essentially, we're about 4 months out, I think, from the book coming out as I'm filming this. And this is kind of around the time where I start thinking about what I want to do to help promote and market my books. I have a very good relationship with my publisher who does a good job marketing my books and who does put good effort into marketing my books, which is not the case for everyone, unfortunately. And so my marketing efforts to me are really to kind of highlight or to emphasize marketing that my publisher is already doing, or to add my own kind of bits and pieces. And so that's essentially what I have planned, or what I will be planning and working on in this video. For some people, this might look different because their publisher might be doing more or less. The onus might be more on them. And also it's kind of just like personal taste and what different people decide to do. But this is essentially what I myself decide to do. Some people may decide not really to do any promotion or marketing themselves. And I honestly think that's totally fine, because the job of the author is to write the book. But that all aside, I thought it would be fun to just kind of share all of this, to share kind of my thought process and my brainstorming, to share, my digital marketing strategy, whether I decide to do swag items, how I design or put those together or commission things, and, printing costs, budgeting, also timelines, kind of how I decide when I'm going to put everything out. And I will have that all separated into timestamps in the description if you want to jump around. But yeah, this is essentially just kind of like a journey with me of how I plan out marketing for my books. What I start with when I'm planning my marketing is I want to first look at the marketing plan from my publisher. So in traditional publishing, they will send you, or they're meant to send you, as far as I know, a marketing plan. And so this is essentially everything that they are going to do, both marketing and publicity wise, for your book. So in traditional publishing, they do make a distinction between marketing and publicity. So to my understanding, publicity is free things. So things that they can do at no cost to promote your book. And marketing are paid things. So things that they are investing money to do. So this might be things like ads. It might be GOODREADS giveaways. It might be them, sending out arcs to people, things that are going to incur some sort of cost. And so they make that distinction. I personally just use the word marketing for everything, because those weren't necessarily distinctions made when I worked corporately in marketing. There were different discussions about what marketing, what publicity was. But anyway, it all fell under marketing. And so that's why I talk about it generally that way. But anyway, so that's a plan that your publisher will send you. This is not like a contract. It's essentially what it is. It's a plan. Some things that are not on there might happen later down the line. Some things that are on there you may never see come to fruition. It really just depends. But because I have a history with my publisher, I kind of have a good idea of what will happen and what might not happen based on what is put in the plan. And so I'm looking at it because it gives me an idea of what my publisher is going to do. So I know where I kind of can decide, okay, I don't really need to put efforts into that. And so what I tend to be looking for in terms of deciding what my effort will be is things like influencer marketing, travel, and digital assets. So I can't share the details of my marketing plan because it is confidential. But essentially things like influencer marketing. So are they going to send arcs to influencers and to booksellers and that sort of thing? Or am I going to kind of feel the onus of, I guess I have to try and send those to people? And in this case, my publisher was going to do that. And they've always been very good about that. So that isn't something that I'm worrying about. And so that's not really something I'm going to really incorporate into my plans. If there's an influencer that pops out to me and I want my publisher to send things to them, then I can let them know who that influencer is. But they've always been very good at kind of catching all the people that I would have made them aware of anyway. And because way back when I did Blood Like Magic, I like shared a bunch of names, it's pretty much just been good from the beginning. And then travel. So in this case, I'm looking at, is there like any sort of festival that I've already been booked at that I'm kind of guaranteed that they've included in that plan? And so that kind of lets me know. In the case of Delicious Monsters, originally a tour wasn't really on the plan to begin with, but I asked about that later. However, in the case of Tender Beasts, if Delicious Monsters had like blown up really huge and like really overperformed, then I probably would have asked for a tour. But in the case of Tender Beasts, I just don't really think the performance will probably warrant that happening. And nothing like that was laid out in the plan. And so I kind of will just kind of assume travel is potentially not going to happen, and I'm not booked for anything, and so I don't have anything sort of guaranteed. And so for me personally, that means, okay, do I want to organize my own travel somewhere for an event? And so now I have that set aside. Okay, that might be something for me to plan with. And then the last thing is digital assets. So are they going to make any graphics that I can use on my own platform? So in this case, yes, they're going to make some sort of quote graphics and things like that. Things they've made for me in the past that I can kind of feel like I'm pretty much guaranteed. So, okay, I know I'm going to get those assets, and I can kind of plan for when I might want to post them myself, or when I might want to add them into my own sort of digital marketing strategy. And so that's essentially what I'm looking for in the marketing plan. I got my marketing plan 5 months out. I think I've previously maybe gotten it as close as like 3 months out. But I think kind of at the 3-month mark for me is when I would ask my publisher. I'd kind of be like, hey, well, am I going to get to see that marketing plan sort of thing? Or talk with your agent or anything like that about when you might see that. But that's kind of how I think about the marketing plan and use that to decide what I'm going to do. Now I'm going to talk about swag. So this is things like, bookmarks and stickers and pins and all of that stuff. I kind of started thinking about this right away because I know that bookmarks are something really good to kind of give out to people. And so I kind of start thinking of physical swag right away because I know that this is something that I can kind of give out if I get invited to any events, if I go anywhere, or at the very least at my book launch. This is something that I can give out to people. So I start thinking of what I want to do for this pretty early on. And then later on, I kind of decide what I'm going to do with those items. But I pretty much start putting designs together pretty early on for this just because I design these things myself. That's really up to you. Some people have other people design their own swag. Just because for me, I'm able to do all of that stuff and I'm able to do it, I think, pretty well. I just do that on my own. So I'll chat a little bit quickly about kind of the design process of these things. So in planning marketing for Tender Beasts, I know that in the book there is a school, it's called Bear Academy. And so I thought maybe I'll make some sort of like logo for the school and then I can use that on different swag items. And so I made that logo, I'll pop it up on the screen, but I made that logo pretty early on. I used to subscribe to a thing called Envato Elements, which is where I paid a lump sum amount for the year to have access to a bunch of digital assets. So they had things like, they had stock photos, they had PowerPoint templates, they had design templates, they had like all sorts of fonts, they had all sorts of design things. They had a lot of stuff, but I just found that I wasn't using it as often as the price kind of, seemed to dictate. And so I decided to move to just buying individual elements from Etsy. And so in the case of this design, I bought a little bear, that little roaring bear thing from Etsy. I try and make sure that I check the permissions on these. So see if you are allowed to print these things, see if you're allowed to use them commercially. I'm not using them commercially because I'm not selling these items. I'm giving them away for free, but I just like to make sure I have the commercial license just in case. So that's something I look at when I'm designing these. I also designed a book plate that I could sign. in the past, Simon & Schuster has provided a blank book plate, but it's really just like a white square, and I don't like it. I think it's nice when you don't want to invest budget, because then they provide it to you for free and you could sign a bunch and give them out. I just don't like the look of them. They're not customized to the book. They're not customized to me. And so I would rather make the customized book plates. And so I designed a book plate for Tender Beast that I could sign and send out in some way, maybe. Again, at this point, I'm just designing stuff. I haven't even decided whether I will actually print these things, but because designing is kind of simple for me, I just kind of go ahead and do it. So this one, I also, I used a combination of elements from the book cover and also from things I purchased on Etsy. And speaking of the book cover, because sorry, I forgot to mention this. So what I make sure to ask for as soon as basically my cover is finalized is I ask my publisher for a layered version of the cover. And so this is basically the Photoshop file of the cover, because that means that I can pull out different elements of the cover. So I can pull out the illustration and get rid of the text on it. I can pull out the title text. I can know what the different fonts are. I can pull colors from it. I can pull backgrounds. It just makes it way easier to design a bunch of stuff because you have access to the actual design file. I don't know that all publishers will give you this, but my publisher does. And so I use that to help create my swag items, and it creates a branding. I also use it for digital assets as well. But anyway, so that's how I made that book plate. And then I also made a bookmark design. I did a double-sided bookmark design because I did that for Blood Like Magic / Blood Like Fate, and that was really good. And just because there's 2 characters on the cover, I thought it'd be fun to flip the bookmark and see each character. And so I made that using the cover elements. People will sometimes put links and stuff or a lot of information about the book on the bookmark. This is really up to you. For me personally, I just to me, once I'm giving you the bookmark, you already have some sort of investment in the book. And so I don't really see the point in trying to advertise the book to you through the bookmark. And I'm not really networking so often that I'm using the bookmark as a networking tool. And so for me, I just do the bookmark and then I do a little bit.ly thing to the website page for Tender Beast, just in case people are like, what is this? Or why do I have this? They can look it up and see, oh, it's this book. And then I have all my buy links on that page, everything on that page. Sometimes people use QR codes. I just don't like the way they look. So I'd rather just do a simple bit.ly. And the thing about the bit.ly link is that it's a shortened URL. And so it's something that people can easily type. Something I would say about the bit.ly though, is that it is case sensitive. So when you are creating a bit.ly link, just be aware of that, because if people don't know and you have capital letters, if people don't exactly put in the capital letters, it's not going to work. And so that's why I put all my bit.ly links lowercase, even though it makes it look like one big word, because it's just, I don't want to have to rely on people realizing it's case sensitive. So, but yeah, so I designed that, and then I designed a Delicious Monsters book plate because I hadn't done that before. And I wanted to do that because I'm already at this point percolating, deciding in the planning that I want to, give away some kind of Delicious Monsters stuff as well. So that was really all of the designing of the physical swag, and then the printing part of the physical swag. And I guess all swag is physical, but anyway, so the printing part, something I recommend is to get samples. So printing companies have samples of all the stuff they print. And so they usually provide it for free, or you just have to pay for shipping, which is a couple dollars. And so I will get these from printers so that I can see the quality, I can physically feel it, I can see their sizing and stuff. And I'll just get these from a bunch of places. I have these from Vistaprint, I have them from Jukebox, from Moo. These are more Canadian printers. And then from also sticker companies. So from Sticker App and Sticker U. So I'll just get a bunch of these from different places just so that I can see what that will look like. And I recommend doing that. But the actual printing out of things, I learned early on that it is a bad idea to just randomly print swag having no idea what you're going to use it for. Because that's how you end up with a lot of overstock of swag that you don't know what to do with. And so for me, because I don't do a lot of events, I don't have a lot of opportunities to give out swag. And so going back in time, Liselle, planning for Tender Beasts is if I'm not going to do a pre-order campaign, there's not any point in me buying a lot of physical swag up front. So that's kind of how I went in mindset wise into planning things. Let's talk about pre-orders and pre-order campaigns. If you don't know, a pre-order campaign is a thing that mostly authors do, sometimes publishers, but mostly authors. When you're seeing a pre-order campaign, it's an author putting it together. And this is to provide some sort of incentive to get people to pre-order, because it's very beneficial for authors to have pre-orders, because pre-orders show your publisher that people are interested in your book. And sometimes this can make a publisher put more effort into marketing, put more effort into publicity, because they know that you're getting a good amount of pre-order sales. Pre-order sales are also important for things like listing. So if you want to be on the New York Times bestseller list or the indie bestseller list, having those pre-orders months in advance is a way that you can build up sales, because all those pre-orders aren't going to count until the day the book comes out. So it's a way to make you have essentially a much larger number of sales right off the bat, which can increase your chances of getting onto lists. And so that's why pre-orders are important to authors. And so some authors will do this pre-order campaign as a means of kind of trying to drum up pre-order sales. So do I think that pre-orders sell more books? I actually don't. So I don't think pre-orders are effective in getting more sales. I think what pre-order campaigns do most often is they just kind of incentivize people who are already going to pre-order the book to get going and actually pre-order it, or they give a little gift to someone that was always going to pre-order. I don't think it really does well in converting people that would have never pre-ordered into becoming people who would pre-order. I don't necessarily know that it does that based on from what I've heard from other people, but I also think it depends. I think when the publisher does a pre-order campaign, sometimes they have a bit more sway, and sometimes they have more budget, and so they can do a kind of fancier pre-order item that you as an author personally might not be able to do. And so maybe sometimes they can in fact incentivize people more. They also have a wider scope, so they can kind of show more people, because when you do the pre-order as an author, the only people that are going to see it are the people that are already following you, which is again likely they will pre-order from you anyway. But in any case, the reason I am talking about pre-orders in my planning of book marketing is because I've decided to do one for Tender Beasts. And essentially why I've decided to do it is really just to thank readers for supporting the book. Because I suspect that most people pre-ordering Tender Beasts will be people that are fans of Delicious Monsters. And I just really want to thank people that have supported Delicious Monsters. If you've been watching my channel, you know that this book has been a bit of a roller coaster for me. It's a book that I love and I'm really, really proud of. But it was a book that was kind of expected to do a lot more than it did. And I really just kind of wanted to be thank you so much for people that have supported me and that have gone out and shared about the book and that are excited for the next book. And I kind of just want to give them something. That's really, for me, the entire reasoning of doing it. So once you've kind of decided to do a pre-order campaign, as I have, there's the decision of kind of how are you going to put it together. And so there are a lot of things to think about. So to me, the first thing is what you are going to allow to count for entering into the pre-order campaign. And so this is obviously the pre-ordering of the book. Can they pre-order from anywhere? Do they have to pre-order from a specific place or from a bookstore? Does this only count if they're pre-ordering the hardcover, or does it also count if they're pre-ordering the audiobook or the ebook? And then also, do you want to allow things like library requests? Which for me, that is something I plan to do, because again, this isn't really a thing I'm doing to try and drum up sales. It's a thing I'm doing to say thank you. And so I want readers, who request that their library stock Tender Beasts, I want to give them a gift too. And so that means that they don't necessarily have to put money down. So that's kind of the decision. And then from there, I have to decide how I want to get those things out to people. So do I want to mail everything myself, or do I want to work with like an independent bookstore and have people order through them? And then when the indie does their orders, they just slip the swag into the item and then they ship it off. And so this is something that a lot of authors do because it's very cost effective. It means that I am not doing the shipping costs anymore. I am also not doing the work of the actual shipping. They just add the thing to every box and off you go. And then you also get to support the indie. In my case, I've decided that I would like to mail these myself. And that's for kind of a variety of reasons. And basically why I decided to do this is because, for one, flexibility. So if I mail everything myself, then it means that people's pre-orders can come from anywhere. And so they get to choose their preferred retailer. So they can pick an indie bookstore in their own, hometown. They can pick the online retailer that's easiest for them. They can kind of do what they want, or like their own library, etc. It also means that library requests will work, because if you're doing it through a bookstore, they're not going to mail something out to someone that just did like a library request. You have to purchase a book. And so it works better for me to do it in that case. And then it also gives me more control. Like in the past, I've signed book plates to like send to a store, but because they don't know how many they're going to sell, I have to like sign a larger amount of book plates. So I might sign like 200 book plates, and then I don't know how much they might actually sell. They ask for the amount of book plates relative to like what they think they might sell, but there's no way to know. And if they don't use all of the swag, I don't get it back. Like they don't ship it back to me. They just keep it. And so this way, if I do all the packaging myself, for one, I can keep track of the numbers. And so that way, when I'm purchasing things to print, I can print exactly what I need. And so I don't have to worry about like over printing or under printing, which is the thing of like, if I'm sending to a bookstore, I kind of am always going to overprint because I don't know how much they're going to need. And also, then if I have extras, I keep them and I retain them, and that way I can use them for other things. As opposed to if I send them all off, there's not really anything to do about that. And so that's why I prefer to do that. There will be more work because then I have to mail out everything myself, but I kind of think it's worth it just to kind of centralize and maintain that control of it. Something else to consider is, who do I want to allow to enter this? I think I'm probably going to do the US and Canada, and I'm on the fence as to whether I want to do the UK. So I want to do the US and Canada for sure, because these are the places that have the rights to sell tender beasts. And so these are the places where people are going to most likely, be able to easily pre-order and also be able to easily make library requests. Of course, there are, different sort of sellers. There are kind of international sellers. So people could potentially buy the book internationally as well. But once you start getting into international, the costs increase exponentially. And so to me, that's the big barrier between doing international. And I feel kind of bad. I know it sucks when you're like international anyway. I get it in Canada too, where things are like US only or like no international and you can't do it. And I know it kind of sucks, but I also have to budget this out, especially because I can't guess what numbers might be. And it might be, nothing to send to like 10 international people. But if I magically got like 50 international people, that would suddenly skyrocket the budget. And so for the purposes of like making this affordable for me and being able to do it, I think that I'll probably just have to stick to the US and Canada. And so these are the sorts of things to think about when planning as well. And then I kind of need to plan all the different things I'm going to need. So what exactly am I going to what is the format of the pre-order campaign going to be? And I kind of have planned or decided to do a sort of tiered thing. So everyone will get these set of items, and then I'll have like a prize pack that like maybe one person will win, maybe 3 people will win. I haven't decided yet. It kind of depends on how much I want to make. But my kind of rough plan currently, because that's what this is all about sharing with you, is that I want to do a Tender Beast sticker of that school logo, signed book plates for both Tender Beast and Delicious Monsters, the Delicious Monsters postcard that I made last year that I have a bunch of extras of because I didn't really do that many. I wasn't getting a lot of opportunities to hand those out. So putting those in there, and then doing an embroidered patch of the school logo for Tender Beasts as well. And so and then the bookmark for Tender Beasts. So those are the swag items that kind of everyone will get. And then what I'm planning for currently for this big prize pack is I want to do some stuff that's like Delicious Monsters and some stuff that's Tender Beasts. And so I think I want to do a sweatshirt with the Tender Beasts, the school logo. And I think I also want to do a t-shirt that has the Delicious Monsters, the mansion logo on it, because there's a t-shirt that one of the characters wears in the book in Delicious Monsters, and it has the mansion printed on it. And because I have a Cricut, I can print those on. So then I can make any size for anyone. I just need to buy a blank t-shirt and I can print it on. So doing that. And I think I want to do a school pennant flag for Tender Beasts, just like a Bear Academy pennant flag, because that's kind of like school themed. And then I may or may not also do like a book tote that's reversible. So like one side have kind of like Tender Beasts coated, and then the other side have like Delicious Monsters coated. I think I'll do that. And then maybe a bear keychain, because that's also in Tender Beasts. Again, this is the planning phase, but that's kind of what I'm thinking of doing. Doing that sort of tiered thing, just because I think the prize pack thing will be a little bit more exciting for people. And that'll be like a fun thing for someone to get with like all of that swag in it. So that's kind of my plan. And then I also have to think of all of the things I'm going to need to do this besides the swag itself, which means I need envelopes. I need like some sort of waterproof packaging that the actual paper products can go into the envelope. I need, stamps, lots of stamps, and whatever I'm going to use to package the prize pack thing, but also like the sweatshirt blank and the t-shirt blank, and then all of the Cricut materials to print something onto a t-shirt. So that's pretty much everything that I need to get together if I want to do this sort of pre-order campaign. So there's a lot of things to think about when you are planning these. And I think this is why a lot of people just do the paper products, because it's a lot simpler than also adding this like prize pack element. But I think I want to do the prize pack element. So that is what I'm currently planning. Let's talk about budget. So in terms of how much things are going to cost. So I've heard from other people that their pre-order campaign, that if you get like 100, that's like pretty good. And so on that basis, I decided to budget for if I was going to get 200 pre-orders and for like around like 2 to 3 prize packs. And so the main sort of cost of the actual printing of the swag items, so this is the printing of stickers and bookmarks and book plates, and also the cost of the embroidered patch, that came out to like $520. And basically 50% of that cost is the embroidered patches, because they are a more sort of luxe design element. They cost more, they are more expensive. And I can tell you right now that as of making this video, I've already ordered the embroidered patches. I really wanted to do them and I knew the expense and I've just decided to eat it. So those are coming, and there was a deal for getting a higher amount. So I actually got 300 units of those. But I'm going to wait on the paper products until I actually like have set up the whole pre-order campaign and I can kind of see numbers and see like how many people are submitting, to give me a kind of better idea of how many printed items. And so probably what I will do is like the patches will be while supplies last, and then the other print items will be whatever. And then the cost for doing the prize pack items is mostly the cost of like Cricut materials and then like the sweatshirt and the t-shirt. And that came up to around $250. And so that would be for like, I guess like 3 sort of prize pack things. But because the Cricut items, you kind of have to buy them in a larger bulk, I will have extra, but not of the actual sweatshirt material. And so that's a little bit more expensive to do that sort of prize pack option, but I also want to do that. And so I'm just understanding the expense. And then the last expense from that budget section is the packaging. So the actual mailing. So the cost of stamps, the cost of the envelopes, the cost of that, waterproof thing for the paper products, and then the cost of like shipping the prize pack thing and putting that in a big box and all of that. And that comes out to around $200. Again, this is assuming kind of like 200 pre-orders. So the cost altogether is about kind of $1,000. And so I decided based on my kind of budget that that was something that I was okay with. And that's when I decided to kind of go forward with this pre-order idea. If the budget had been kind of out of my reach, I probably wouldn't have. And so in this case, I've kind of saved money by doing all the design myself, and the real costs have kind of come through the actual printing. And now talking about digital marketing. So these are all the things that are going to happen online. And really this is like social media posts is how I think of it. There is the option of YouTube and doing YouTube videos to promote my books, but I just find that YouTube videos that are like specifically meant to promote my books just tend to not perform well. And so I usually save my very book targeted promotion for things like Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and I save them for those platforms. And if I do any sort of video on YouTube, it's really probably a separate unrelated video, and I might mention that Tender Beast is out, or I'll do a vlog. I usually do a vlog, and that kind of ends up being my most sort of targeted thing, but I already do vlogs every month, so it's not really like different or anything that I specially plan for. I just know there will eventually be a vlog where I talk about the book. But in the case of digital marketing for like promotion of the book, this is something that I do try and plan. I think it's just because I have a marketing background, and so I like worked in social media professionally, and so I naturally think of doing these things. And so really what I plan for when I'm planning for digital marketing is I'm kind of deciding what I would like to post. So usually on social media, I post in a very like ad hoc way. Like if something comes up and it's relevant, I'll post about it. I'm not the sort of person that wants to do like regularly scheduled posts, because quite honestly, I just don't think they do anything. I just don't think they do anything for me. And I'm not really interested in expending my energy in that way. But I will plan posts for the lead up to the book. Usually really kind of just like the month it comes out. I think I did a little bit before for Delicious Monsters, and I don't really think it made a big difference. I'd rather just post all of my big planned posts for the month of. And so what I kind of plan for usually is I want to do some like cool photo posts. So like static photos to kind of get people excited. And then I want to do some like TikToks, which I will also repost on Instagram as reels. And so the photos I'll post usually just on Instagram. I don't do a ton of marketing on Twitter anymore. For one, there's not as many people on there. The engagement is different. And it's also just like different because of the X thing, and the Elon Musk thing is a whole thing. So really my efforts are focused on Instagram and on TikTok. And so my planning is kind of what I'm going to do. So those photo posts I know I want to do. And then the TikToks, I kind of think of what videos might be interesting. I did some videos last year for Delicious Monsters, so I have those to build upon. And what worked out pretty well for me was having those videos where I talked about my inspiration for the book, and I used like stock video images and stuff. I also did some kind of like sizzle reels, I call them, which is where I like place the book down and I put music on and I like move around to different angles and stuff. I also did some like, sort of more dynamic quote graphics where it was like a quote, but there was a moving video behind it or something. And so those are kind of the things I'm planning to do. I'll probably do like an aesthetics video as well, where I just kind of like show the book, and then I show some like moving images and video of like stuff people can expect in the book. So those are pretty much kind of the things that I plan. And what I do is I create a content calendar, which is what I'll do for Tender Beasts. And I just kind of make a calendar, and I will do kind of like a 2-day a week thing where like one day of the week is a photo post and the other day of the week is a video, and just alternate for that. And then I have a special kind of post for launch day. And then I also want like a post-launch post. So I want something after the book is launched to basically be to people like, hey, remember that book? It's out now and you can buy it. So that's kind of how I plan for my digital marketing. It's a little bit more loose, but it does still require like a good amount of me doing things ahead of time. I'll talk about that a little bit more when I talk about kind of timeline. Now on to timeline. So this is a big part of my planning process for marketing and all of this, which is like, when am I going to do all of this stuff? And it's helpful for me to have a timeline, partially just because it lets me know when I should actually be doing things, but also it's helpful for me kind of planning things ahead of time so that when I'm actually in my launch month and I'm actually launching the book where I may or may not have a bunch of things going on, I'm not having to do all of this stuff. All of this stuff should have, for the most part, already been done, or it's something that I'm going to be able to do shortly thereafter. So in terms of how I put this all together, usually I kind of have a general timeline of things, especially in the case of like if I'm going to be doing this pre-order campaign. But for my digital marketing, I will usually create a content calendar, which I believe I talked about before, where I like put in all of my posts and I decide kind of how that's going to happen and when that's all going to come out together. So pretty much probably things will kick off in November. And so November is 3 months out. And so around the November mark, basically what I've got planned, I'm going to consult here, is the designing of the swag should be done at that point. It's technically really actually already done. But also I should also kind of be getting ready to promote the pre-order campaign. And so at that point, I want to have everything in place for that. So I'm probably going to need a Google form to get everyone's information. And so I want to have that prepped and ready. And then I'm also going to want a social media post to kind of say, hey, this is the pre-order campaign, and to share everything that's in it, to share all the information. And I may or may not also want a page on my website to explain everything as well, or in addition to the Tender Beasts web page that I already have. So that's something I might want. And then we're into December, which is 2 months out. And so this is when I want to start ordering the swag. So I'm going to start ordering things. It's not necessarily a perfect system because not everyone would have done their pre-order by then and like filled out the form and all of that. But I hope that after having the form up in November, that I'll kind of have a general idea of numbers so I can kind of decide what to order. But again, the great thing about me mailing these myself is that if I get way more orders than I expect, I can just order more things in and then I can package them out and send them out later, as opposed to if it was done through a bookstore, like it would cause a delay with their orders and things like that. It would make it really difficult and really messy. Whereas I can just do it this way. And then also, I also need to make all the Cricut things. So I want to make at least one copy of all of the things on Cricut and all the things that I'm planning to like sew and make, to make sure that they look nice and that it works and that everything's coming together well. And so I'll want to do that, if possible in December. And then also, travel arrangements to be made. So I hope, and this is part of my plan, where I talked a little bit before about I probably contact my publicist about doing a launch somewhere. And so I think probably this launch will be in Toronto. Who knows? We're pretty far out, so anything could change. But for now, I'm planning for a launch to be in Toronto. And so wanting to get that planned. So I'll probably have to book flights, since I will probably be booking my own flight and my own accommodations. And so that's something that I probably also want to do in December to give myself a good amount of lead up. And then in January, this would be the digital content heavy month. So this is when like all of the stuff that I'm going to be posting in February, like I want to be shooting all the photos, and I want to be shooting all the videos and putting together all the videos, doing all the voiceovers, getting all of that ready ahead of time so that I can schedule out all of that content or put all of that content in my drafts so that in February, I'm not worrying about actually making that content. I'm just posting it. And then if anything else kind of ad hoc pops up in February, then I have the free time and space to just kind of do that. And in this plan, I guess I'll talk about this when I get to February, talking about February, which will be launch month. So the plan is that I'm really not doing anything during this month. I might have some things that come up on the fly that I might want to post about. And of course, I'm going to take video footage of any sort of launch event or traveling event or signings. I'm going to take videos of all of that so that I can share that later. And I should already have had a launch post scheduled and kind of ready to go. I'm just posting things that are already popping out. And it's already kind of my plan to make it clear in this sort of pre-order incentive campaign thing that I'm going to send out everything a month, that I'm going to send everything out kind of up to a month after the book comes out. So you might not get your swag immediately, but I do need to bake in room for me to both have my launch, recover from my launch, and then start mailing things out. I think it would be great to be able to mail things out to people and have them get it, right when they get the book or before they get the book. But I just think that that's not terribly realistic. And to be honest, even when publishers do pre-order campaigns, because I've submitted to pre-order campaigns from publishers, I will sometimes get swag months and months after the book has come out, and I'm never upset because I'm always like, oh, hey, here's my stuff. And like oftentimes by that time I'll have read the book that I actually pre-ordered, and so then it's exciting because the swag means a little bit more to me. So I think I will just bake that in from the beginning in order to give myself that time and space. And so then March, which will be a month, or just kind of generally post book launch, this is when I would like to post a little bit of a reminder to be like, hey, my book is out. Have you seen it? Have you heard of it? Just kind of to, make known to people that the book is still out. And probably when I'll be done. I'll probably also share that video. I'll have my vlog that I will do of launch week and all of that. So that vlog will go out in March. And then I'll probably do a little TikTok or reel video of my launch experience, and I'll post that as well. But after that, to me, I'm pretty much done. That's all of my marketing for that book, and anything else that happens to me is very ad hoc. I'll just post things on the fly, but that's kind of all of the stuff that I sort of actively plan. And in there as well, which I almost forgot to mention, I would be putting reminders of the pre-order campaign so people know that that's happening. And I may or may not do it so that it extends a little bit beyond launch, that, so that people, if they want to buy the book the first week it's out, they can still get the swag. I'll probably make it that way. So then in that launch post, I might do one that says you have this amount of time to get the swag and that sort of thing. And that way people who don't really want to pre-order, who want to buy it the day it comes out, or maybe they only hear about it the day it comes out and they want to buy it that week, can still do it and still get the stuff. So that's kind of how I lay out my timeline. And these are the sort of things I plan. Of course, throughout this, there may be things that are completely unplanned. For example, if I got invited to a book festival, okay, maybe now I'm advertising that book festival, that sort of thing. But these are the controlled things that I know I have control of, that I can do and plan for. And that's everything for me planning for the marketing of Tender Beasts. So it's a little bit of a lot of things. I don't usually plan this much, as I said, because in the past I haven't done a pre-order campaign. So then that whole pre-order bit I wouldn't have done. I probably still would have designed all those swag items, but it would have just kind of been printed things, and I would have printed it and that would have been the end of it. I wouldn't have had that whole prize pack thing. And so it would kind of differ. And I kind of change this depending on the book. Maybe my next book, I'll be I don't want to do a pre-order campaign and I won't do it again. It kind of really depends. And I will say about this and about digital marketing and all of this is voluntary from me. Again, I don't really think these are things that move the needle. These are things that I do because I want to do them, things that I do because I want to, share that with my audience. For the people that are following me, I want to provide them some content. And so I decide to do that. I do firmly believe that the job of an author is to write the book. And I think that should really be the only job of the author. And I think it's a bit of a fallacy in which, when some cases, and publishers kind of act as though an author can do the same work or have the same impact that a publisher can doing marketing and publicity, because I just think that oftentimes they will not. I think these people that are kind of blowing up on TikTok are really like outliers. And even then, I think a lot of times it's not even the author blowing up the book, it's readers blowing up the book, and the author just happens to exist there. And again, all of that is virality, and you cannot predict being viral. You cannot plan to go viral. You either do or you don't. And for me, that's trying to do that is not worth the effort. And so all of my efforts, marketing and swag wise, are for me in order to, give something to the audience that I already have, because those are the people that I know are interested in my books. And so I want to keep them updated with things. I want to share content with them, and I'd like to, give them a little reward for supporting books in a way that is affordable and like budget worthy for me. And so that's basically how all this planning has gone. And of course, there's some things you can never plan for, but I just wanted to share my process and my thought process of everything I went through for Tender Beast, because I don't think I've gotten a chance to do a video like this. And because I was already in the process of doing this, I figured it was a good time to just put this all together. So yeah, that's basically everything. Obviously I don't have any sort of pre-order thing ready now, but I will add it to the video later on, just in case, somebody's watching this in the future and is like, oh my gosh, I'd like to pre-order. So I'll have it below. And of course I'll have the link below to Tender Beast if you just want to learn more about it, or pre-order, and also Delicious Monsters. But yeah, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And thanks so much for watching. Bye!